Hello, hopefully I'm back. Bryn popped in, and when she popped out, she ended the stream. So somebody let me know that you can see and hear me and that I am back. Anyone here? Am I alone? Am I in the wrong room? Oh my goodness. Okay, Artie says hey. So it looks like I'm back, hopefully. Okay, let's give it a minute. Oh, that daughter of mine. She's trying to be helpful and she clicked a button she shouldn't have clicked and kicked me off. So thank you for your patience and coming back. Let me get back to where I was. I have ADD as it is. I don't need any distractions giving me more ADD. So what I was saying is that Redken has these charts. If you go on Google and type in Redken Shades EQ fill formulas, for instance, this chart will come up. This is a guide. I am not a recipe teacher. I don't believe in recipes because the texture of the hair, the porosity, the density, there's so many factors. Is it, Brazilian relaxed? Is it, regular relaxed? Or is it permed? Is it, does it have mineral buildup? There's so many things that affect, your choice of recipe. So I'm not for recipes, but if you haven't done fillers before, this is a great guide to give you an idea of what to use that would be good. What I like about this guide is it says, it tells you the undertone that's missing at each level. And then it suggests if you want a warm result, use this. If you want a natural result, use this. If you want a cool result, use this. So I like that because you do have to keep in mind what the final result is going to be to make sure, you don't want to put all this warmth in when you're going for a cool result, but you also have to put in what's missing in the hair. So it's kind of like a dance that you need to do. So these are, people will say, where did you get that chart? I'm like, I didn't make it. I just Google it, So everything that I see or use, I grab it and I share it with other people. This book, for some reason, the stores or Redken or somebody is very stingy with it. I wish I could get one of these for every single Redken Shades EQ user because I refer to it often because of this chart. You can also get this anywhere online. I have it in my phone. It's saved in my favorites on my phone. I refer to it often because I have to remind myself. I can't always remember the exact base that's in a shade, especially when you get into those pre-blended shades like the VGs and the GNs and the NABNs and all of that. So that's very helpful to have that chart. But most people that I've taught have no idea that that top bar is even on the chart. And if they do know it's there, they've never looked at it and they don't know what it means. They go by names. I'll hear people say, I use, what's an example? Cafe au lait. I used cafe au lait. It was so pretty. Oh, I use Mojave. I use gilded taupe. I use milk tea. That means nothing to me. If anybody has been around as long as I have, you'll know that Clairol had all kinds of names like, sunset red, and some of the moonstone was like a really ashy blonde. So they did it in names the way they do OPI nail polish. But to me, that made me feel more confused going by names than actually understanding, the numbers in Clairol, it was like 27G. So you're like, what's a 27? At least when hair color has a numbering system like it does now, you understand that it's the level you're working at least, and not just 27. 27, I don't know what that ever meant. I'm sure it meant something. AA in Shades EQ, great question, Felix. AA, one would think as a colorist, we're always looking for lots of ash colors. So you think, oh, that has double ash. But if you haven't worked with the line and you don't look at the chart and you dump something with AA on someone's hair, you're going to get a big surprise. And talk about corrective color remix. You're going to have a lot of corrective coloring to do because it is orange. And said, trust me, knowing the background color of what you're using is so important. Absolutely. Someone said, I think you can get the fill chart if you go to redken.com. Yes. I mean, Redken has a lot of things available virtually, to get a digital version, but I really like having this book. It's in my drawer right next to me. I pull it out at least once a day. And I don't look at it. I don't look at any of these recipes in here. It's just that one chart that I like, but I don't take it out of the book because I'll never see it again. Okay. So let's get back to business. So we put the filler on at the level 8. We filled it again at the level 6. And then we put our target shade of the 4 and we took her back to that dark color that she had. Nice and even, nice and shiny. You would never know that she was a blonde under there, which brings me to our next part of the yin and yang of color is when that client sits in your chair and looks like she either was naturally dark or she was naturally dark and has dark color on, but you would never suspect when looking at that photo I just showed you that she was Gwen Stefani blonde very soon before that appointment. And how many of you have had a client sit in your chair? They have the dark hair on their head. They ask to be blonde, and they don't think that it was necessary to let you know what lies beneath that dark hair. We ask questions in our consultation. We make it part of the visit to ask the right questions. But I had a girl with beautiful spiral corkscrew curls, ginormous, beautiful curly hair. It was like something out of a, 70s movie. And she sat in my chair and she was like, I want to be blonde. I want highlights. And I'm looking at her hair and it just looked like that young girl used to be blonde as a child, got lighter kind of look. And I'm highlighting her and I'm looking at it and looking in the foil and I'm like, this isn't lightening the way it should for her being such a natural light blonde. Something's going on. And I'm like, have you ever colored your hair before? And she's like, oh yeah, my mom put a box on it last week. I was like, oh my God. So shame on me for not digging deeper. But when I tell you, it did not look like colored hair. It was such a light color and it was such a weird color. Like it's not a color that you would ever aspire to be. It looked like that natural dishwater blonde that girls get when they hit puberty and they were like a towhead blonde. And it just gets to be that just really flat, ashy, almost eyebrow color, but still in the blonde family. So lesson learned. Most of us, right? If we have that happen once, that's enough. We do a test strand and we ask a lot more questions. So when that happens, when someone has, can you explain why you under-process shades EQ? I don't know what that means. If you're referring to the fill time, I'm filling pigment in there. I don't need the full 20-minute processing time when I'm filling because I'm going to put 2 more layers of color on top of that. So I hope that answers your question. And I don't want to get too sidetracked with questions because we do that at the end with the Q&A. I have a lot to cover. So someone sits in your chair, you're unsuspecting that they have color in their hair. And most of us are going to go mix up our lightener. We're going to be chitty-chatting with her, asking how her family is, where her kids go to school. We're doing all the things. And we just start foiling. And we get to about here in the back of the head. And we say, let me take a peek at my first foil. And what happens is you end up seeing this, the picture on the left of the slide. Very uneven lift, very light where the hair was, not freshly colored, very dark, deep red orange where old color was, and very uneven. And we've all, put a yes in the chat if you've had this happen. I don't know a colorist on earth that's never had this happen. It's a very normal thing to happen. So when you're unsuspecting of color being on there, you get uneven lift. And this is why. Every single person's hair, whether it's short, medium, or long in length, you have to deal with the hair in separate zones. What goes on at zone 1, right at the new growth, it's brand new hair, versus what goes on in that second 2 to 3 inches. We call that zone 2 versus what happens on this hair that has been around for, my daughter's first Holy Communion and 8th grade graduation. Like, think about how much longer, with how slow my hair grows, this hair has been around for a long time. So the hair behaves differently in every one of those zones. So when we just automatically go straight in and start to foil, not knowing that they were Kardashian black over top of blonde, we're going to get that crazy uneven lift. And once that happens, as you know, I see a lot of yeses in the chat. Once that happens, you're like, oh my God, I just created a much bigger mess. I really messed up, because who wants to open every one of those foils and go and mix up lightener and reapply where it didn't lighten and wipe off where it's getting too light? It's a disaster. So all of that can be avoided by doing a strand test. I thought it was so interesting when I hosted Revival. We did a 2-day virtual hair show during COVID, and it was such a great show. We did it 2 years in a row, and I had such amazing presenters that I was so excited that they would take time out. And not knowing me, some girl that reached out to them from the internet and asked them to be in this hair show. They didn't know me. They didn't know anything about me. But every single one of the presenters talked about a strand test. And I'm talking Sonia Dove, I'm talking Cherie Noble from Australia, I'm talking Christina Russell from Australia, Beth Minardi, like all of these colorists that we look at and say, wow, they've had such an amazing career. They're 30 years in, they're on stage at these couple thousand people hair shows. They are doing strand tests. So don't look at a strand test as being a failure and not knowing what you're doing. Look at a strand test as being so thoughtful and passionate and caring about the result of that client's hair that you would rather jack up one piece of hair on their entire head than the whole entire head. So imagine if this person, and I pulled this, I didn't do this, I pulled this off the internet on a Facebook post, but this all could have been avoided. This is all over her hair. This could have been avoided in one strand test where she's like, okay, it's not going to lift even. I need to take a different approach. So don't be shy about the strand test. I recommend when you have a project coming in, have a virtual consultation with them. Don't set aside a half hour of your schedule for a free consultation. Our time is precious and our time is money. We only have so many hours in a day. I highly recommend consultations. I'm not telling you to not do a consultation. As a matter of fact, I think it's the most important part of any process is the consultation. But ask for the client to meet you virtually. You can jump on a FaceTime on, if they have an iPhone, you can do FaceTime. If they're on Facebook, you can do face-to-face on Facebook chat. Or if you're more tech savvy, you can go on Zoom and meet them on Zoom. But that's how we do our consultations now, because number one, you can weed out the people that are going to waste your time, that aren't going to want to spend what it is that you're quoting them. Number two, you're actually physically seeing them. How many times has a client said, oh, my hair is like light brown with some highlights, and they come in and you're like, what mirror is in your house? Where do you see light brown with highlights? So their description, and even colorists, like members of my insiders, will tell me a scenario. They'll say, my client has blah, 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 blah. And I'll say, that doesn't sound right. It sounds more like this. Can you send me a picture? And every single time the picture looks exactly like I'm suspecting that it is. And they're not describing it the way that I need to hear it. So verbal communication is very important, but seeing the person and speaking to them and having no distractions, I highly recommend trying a virtual consultation. So get that first consultation out of the way. You'll know the time that you need for their appointment. You'll know what steps you have to take for their appointment. And you can say to them, I'm going to give you an estimate on price from what I'm seeing now, on this virtual call. It could change when I see you because I can't touch and feel your hair. I don't know what kind of condition your hair is in, but I'm going to give you a range of price. And if you see, you'll see their body language. If you see their eyes get really big and they kind of do this, you're like, okay, I just saved a half-hour appointment in the salon, but I could be doing a paid service in the time that I gave that person my time for a free consultation. So during that consultation, you can say to them, I'm not sure about your hair and its ability to lift because it looks like you have a lot of color on there. So if you stop by the salon, I'd love to cut a little piece of your hair in the back of your head. I've never done the haircut version. Most of the educators are like, oh, we just cut a piece of hair in the back. I've never done that because I know people mostly are very protective of their hair and they don't want any cut off, but that's an option. Or you can just have an assistant, someone else in the salon, just do a quick strand test for you on that client while they're there. And you don't have to wash their whole head. You can just do a piece underneath, check it for lift, and then just shampoo the one piece and call it a day. So very important to know what you're getting yourself into with a strand test. So this is now a real life version of the opposite. She comes back, our Brie is, back to her dark. She went from Kardashian Kim blonde to Kardashian Kim dark. Now this is Madison. She came to me as virgin hair junior in college. I was like drooling like Dracula. I love having a virgin in my chair. And she was like a level 7, beautiful, natural, sandy blonde that just became that dishwater color that we talked about earlier, where she's getting a little bit older. She's not quite bright. Just wanted to be brightened up a little bit. And I actually foiled her using color, not lightener, because when I go in with a virgin, I'm being naughty, but just as your sexual virginity, I think people's hair, they protect just as much. It's very scary to get color for the first time. So I always joke around and say, listen, I'm going to give you as much care that you need losing your virginity as you hopefully had losing your other virginity. Of course, that makes them relax and laugh and they get embarrassed. Because when Maddie sat in my chair, I said, oh my gosh, are you a virgin? And she was like, I'm sorry, what? Like she thought I was asking, is she a virgin? I said, no, I don't need to know that. I meant your hair. So she was a virgin. She was great to work with. I gave her this beautiful, just sun-kissed, what you would see on a little girl on the beach that just had a lot of sun. It was gorgeous. And she loved it until she didn't. And a girlfriend was over at her house and said, let's go to the drugstore and get some color and let's make you dark. So she dumped a box on top of my beautiful blonde. And you can see if you look closely enough that there's some murkiness in her dark because, of course, she didn't know about filling or any of the things we're talking about tonight. So she did exactly what some of you may be doing that aren't filling or may not have known to fill. And she just went right in with the dark color. So there was some off-tone greeny pieces. It wasn't even. She's gorgeous. She could wear either color. So of course, in about, I don't know, a month into having the dark color, seasons change. It's getting warmer. She wants to be light again. So she comes in. Now, because I made her the blonde color, I knew what was underneath. I didn't have to, somebody's husband heard me being naughty. I love it. I didn't have to do a test strand. I didn't have to have the deep conversation because she was my client and I knew what was underneath. So she came back in and we had the conversation of she wanted to go back to a dimensional look. So times like these, when someone has the dark color over top of the blonde color, you always are faced with the decision, what do I want to do to proceed? Do I want to do a color removal service where I just want to take everything off and see what I can get to underneath? Or do I want to keep it dimensional and go low and slow? I personally, my style, I don't do a whole lot of color removal services or bleach washes. I see that all over the internet. Bleach bath. I'm like, we talked about in session 1, not going to the bomb if you can use a firecracker. That's how I feel about bleach washes and color removers. They have their place 100%. These clients that are converting to silver and gray, major corrective situations, you want to get some of that color shift it out of there before you go in with your lightener. But for this, I knew what was underneath. I knew what was on top. I knew it hadn't been more than one time with the dark color, and I knew I could pull it off. So because I showed you what happens when you don't know what's going on underneath, this can still happen because she has box color on there. I don't know if it's going to lift evenly because now I don't know how much of it is her natural and how much is that box color. So I teach a technique in my membership called my flat foil technique. And in that technique, it protects you from this result, from having those three different colors. I can't tell you how many salons I've gone to where I've gone for a massage and it's at my friend's salon. So she knows I'm always checking out their colorist to see what they're doing. And she was a massage therapist, so she couldn't teach them color. And I see this girl doing a client. I see that they have dark, colored hair. And the girl's going in and she's doing a traditional foil, roots to ends, folding it all up like a regular foil. And I walked by and I said, come here for a minute. And I whispered in her ear and I said, you're not going to want to do that. And she's like, why? I do it all the time. And I'm like, when you open that foil, you're going to see three different colors. And she goes, I know, that's fine. I just glaze it away. So she knew going into it, she was going to get three different results, but was like, oh, I'll just, fix it with a glaze. That's not how to be a color expert. That's not how to have people fly in from all over to see you for your expertise. You want to do what you know is best for the client, and doing a one size fits all foil is not what's best for the client in that case. So that's something that I teach that is one of the highlights of my membership, is when and how to do that versus traditional color remover. So I loved this in spirit of Halloween, even though it's not today. I love this meme floating around on Facebook, with the dark pumpkin. If you have hair like this and you want hair like this, your hair must first look like this, the orange, or you'll have hair like this. And it's the shriveled up pumpkin at the end. So we know the limitations that hair has, but we're letting clients bully us into things that we know in our heart we should not be doing. We know what the hair can take. We know what we should do, what we should not do, but we've kind of given away our power in a sense. I see it a lot, and it really raises my blood pressure when I see it on these forums where people are like, but my client said, I just had somebody today. She's like, well, my client said she doesn't want bleach. I'm like, I'm sorry. When I go to any physician and I sit down for my appointment and they tell me I need whatever in the visit, like, I don't like, you know what? I don't like that damn blood pressure cuff. It hurts. It squeezes my arm. It makes me feel dizzy. They squeeze it so damn hard and my blood pressure runs low. So by the time they're done squeezing the hell out of my arm, I'm like all dizzy and they're like, oh, your blood pressure runs low. Is that normal? Do you always? And I'm like, yeah, I could have told you that. But I don't say, oh, no, I'm sorry. We're not going to do that today because I saw on Instagram that you don't need to squeeze my arm that tight with that thing. Like, that's what's happening. There's hairstylists that are getting it twisted with their Instagram. Hairstylists are following other hairstylists that are educators. The educators, their posts are very informative and educational because they're speaking to other hairstylists that they want to be students in their programs. So these other hairdressers are like, oh, she has 400,000 followers and she's talking about the why behind what she's mixing. I'm going to do that. But what happens is your followers and fans are your clients. So now you're teaching your clients about how you color their hair. They don't need to know the how ever. They need to know what they're having done, what it's going to cost them, and the time that it's going to take. There are the three things you owe them: the timing, the service, and the price. And that's it. You do not have to say, I am mixing up an ammonium persulfate lightener because you have negatively charged ions in your hair. Like, don't feel, I think we all go back to that time when we told our family that we wanted to be hairdressers and they were like, oh, you're going to be a hairdresser? Like, you might as well have told them you were going to be a prostitute, especially back in the, I would say like 60s and 70s. Like, my mom was saying, I always wanted to be a hairdresser and everybody just talked me out of it. And I'm like, why? It's like the greatest career on earth, in my opinion. I'm 36 years and going strong, wouldn't do anything else. So we're trying to sound, I think, smarter to our clients, but it's too much. It's TMI to the 10th power. They do not need to know anything chemical. They do not need to know what you're using on their hair. You know, people will say, I'm going to use high lift color because it's gentler than bleach. It's not. It's not. So if you did a test strand of high lift color and 40 volume and lightener and 10 volume, the hair with the 10 volume is going to be lighter, prettier, and less damaged. So, but they don't need to know that. They don't need to know that. So stop doing that. Stop over supplying information that the client does not need and then whining. Then I see people saying, can you believe my client said da da da? I'm like, yeah, you taught her. You taught her how to do that. That's what happens. So most of us, I hope, already know that color does not lift artificial color. So we talked about going from palest blonde, how to take the person back to brown. Then we just talked about, I know we got interrupted, so I'm just recapping a little bit to bring you all in because it's two separate videos now. Then we talked about when they're already dark from artificial color, how to get them back to blonde. So something that I have done in my first 2 months on the floor many times and will never do again is I said, oh, you know, a client, I talked about this in session 1, a client wants to be a lighter, brighter red, and she already has red on there. So say she's like a 6R and it's a vibrant red, but she comes back and it's looking a little faded and she's showing me a picture of a more copper. And I know that copper lives at a higher level. So I'm like, oh yeah, Jane, I could make you lighter and brighter. So I go back to the dispensary and I'm like, instead of a 6, I'm going to use a 7 and all is going to be good. So I put it on, you know, as a retouch, and I put it on her brand new hair up here, and that's lighter and brighter. And then where I put it on the hair that was already colored, I'm smushing it through at the end like they did back in the day, like squirt some water and smush it all through. And I go to shampoo her hair, and this is what I get. And can you even freaking believe that this is Jennifer Lawrence and someone actually did this to her hair? Like, what celebrity stylist? I could not believe my eyeballs. My eyeballs were bleeding when I saw this photo. I had to make her part of the slides because I'm like, number one, she's a celebrity. Number two, she has the money to have the best colorist on planet Earth. And who the hell thought this was a good idea? So I don't know if she played a trashy role where she was supposed to look like she colored her hair herself and gave herself hot roots. But this is what will happen when you misunderstand the power that a tube of color has and think that by using a lighter shade on existing artificial color, yes, her face does look like that it's going to magically make it lighter. Put a 1 in the chat if you've ever had a client say, can't you just mix up something lighter and just put it all over and just change my color? Like, why are you talking to me about all these multidimensional things and all these steps in 8 hours? Can't you just use a lighter color? Like, doesn't that just take it off? Let me see a 1 in the chat. I could have that happen to me 16 times a day. If I had $1 for every time I had a client say that. And then you have to go into this big technical explanation of the why you cannot use your magic wand to make them the lighter color that they aspire to be. So that is, yes, already had one today. So it's about, I'm getting distracted because somebody's asking about Bryn's on here. I'm not going to pay attention to that. So if anything's important, I'll make sure that Bryn gets it to me. So holy hot roots, instant hot roots, because we talked about on that slide with the zones, because every zone behaves differently. Zone 1 is going to be like, yes, give it to me. Give me that juicy new color. I've got that. But exactly where the artificial color starts, you're going to do nothing at all. So the only thing that can budge that existing color is either a color removal service, a bleach bath, or in foil lightener. So you need that balm to remove that to have a fresh slate. I see a lot of people want to take someone to a really vibrant red with someone who has artificial brown on their hair. And they say, I used, 6RR the most vibrant red, why did it not get red? Because artificial color on top of artificial color, especially when the red is a brighter, more vibrant color and it's a really dark, inky base, it's just not going to do enough. You're going to get maybe like a little bit of a glimmer of warmth if they're under, you know. So just do roots? No, it's much more complicated than that. If you're changing over the color, you need to remove some of that color to make it a lighter version. So it becomes more of a corrective service. And that's the conversation that you have to have with that client, that you do not have a magic wand and that you do have to do more than just change the number of the tube of color. So our challenge for tonight's class is it's rare that any of you have ever taken the time to take a dark hair swatch. I don't think I have any dark ones here. But like a level 3, 4, even 5 piece of hair. There's tons of young girls right now at this time of year chopping off their hair. They either do locks of love or they just want a fresh cut after the summer. Start to save that hair. And I want you to take a swatch or a mannequin head, or if you have a coworker that will let you do a piece in the back of their hair or cut a piece of their hair out, but take hair from its dark natural state and lighten it. But I want you to keep wiping off the lightener and reapplying it. Most people have never done this. I did a class in Maui in September, and we loved that exercise because most people don't take the time to do it. And we took the swatch, it was a level 4, and I put lightener with 20 volume on the level 4 swatch, and we set a timer for 8 minutes, and we wiped it off. And then we put fresh lightener on it again and timed it for 8 minutes and wiped it off. Then we put fresh lightener on it again. We kept doing it because our eye could see all of the levels of lift on actual hair, not on this swatch or on a paper swatch. They actually saw the hair go through every one of these stages. To me, that is the best class you will ever take. Swatching is the greatest exercise you could ever do for your career as a colorist because it's just that simple. Like you'll start to catch it with your eye. You're like, oh, that looks like it's done. And I'm going to wipe it off. And then you see it's super gold. So your eye starts to see that moment that it changes from super gold to pale yellow and grabbing it right there. If you want to do a caramel, a lot of times with caramels, people take their caramel all the way to level 10 and then try to fill it back in with all this warmth to do caramel. You only have to take a caramel to a level 8 and utilize that natural warmth that lives there as your base for your caramel. Now you can just, zhuzh it up with a little bit of tone to take the harshness of the warmth out, but keep that caramel kiss in there. So do this swatch, take either human hair, a swatch. They're not great quality, but you can buy swatches on Amazon very reasonably. Pivot Point has some. They're not great either. They're those little stubby ones. I get great hair that is very, very expensive, and I do it on that, but not everybody swatches as much as I do to be able to invest in that. So do that and make sure that you take a white paper towel. And I want you to do this with your actual highlights as well in the salon. When you're unsure if it's finished, open up the foil, slide the foil off, take your glove, slide the lightener off with your glove, squeegee it off, and then take a paper towel and actually really, really wipe it. And most times, I promise you, it's not done. I can't tell you how many times I've taken off a foil 2 minutes too soon. And we all know from session 1, the 2 minutes too soon is holy brass that will not go away and cannot be permanently glazed away. So take that time to have the proper lifting so that you don't have to camouflage it with tons and tons of, glazing and pray to the high heavens that it lasts. So that's your challenge. I want to see your results in the group. If you want to get a prize, you have to share your photos in the group. Again, I reward my action takers. I love people who actually do their homework. I went to 12 years of Catholic school, so I know all about homework. I didn't really agree with all that homework, but I agree with the discipline that I got, that when I was told to do something, I did it. And again, just listening to me, blah, 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 is like Charlie Brown. Wah, 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 wah. You might have gotten 50% of what I said tonight. But if you actually take that piece of hair and watch that hair go through those stages of lift, a light bulb is going to go off in your head. You're going to understand why we came back down and filled the hair and kept it from being hollow. You'll understand why we have to lift further sometimes than we want to go to get that cool result. So it's totally going to make everything make sense. So thank you for being here tonight. Bryn just said there's a workbook tonight with notes from tonight's session. So be on the lookout for your workbook. I will be on the lookout for your homework in the group, and I will be jumping back on. If you're VIP, you should have gotten a link for the VIP Q&A. So I'm going to grab a drink of water because I already have no voice. Oh, Bryn is reminding me that we need you to vote. Put a, hold on, I think is it a 1? Hold on. She's asking for a poll for the masterclass. She wanted you guys to weigh in on what topic. Bryn, where did you send me that? Was it on Slack? You owe me to take care of this because you kicked me out of, oh, it's on the next slide. Okay, so vote for Masterclass. There's 2 times that you can come to Masterclass. Please only sign up for 1. I can't tell you how many people sign up for 2. And then I have to do this whole thing with Zoom and buy extra seats. And then people only come to 1 and then other people can't come. So make sure you make room for everybody to be able to come. There's 2 of them. It's the exact same class. Both are the same exact class. There's November 6th or November 7th. I believe November 6th is daytime and November 7th is evening. So if you would like to see me go on a deeper dive with clients that are embracing their gray, those gray silver conversions, those Jack Martin things that stress us out, type a 1 into the chat. If you'd rather do corrective color consultations, I found myself in session 1, especially in the Q&A VIP session, I found myself saying, that's an important part of the consultation. That's all going to happen in the consultation. That can be avoided in the consultation. So that's why I made number 2 an option, because I truly believe, as a 36-year hairstylist and a salon owner of 32 years, the things that I've seen go most wrong are lack of communication in the consultation. So I think it's something that is rushed a lot because we're always behind and we only have so much time. And then we're seeing that it's a corrective color and we're like, oh crap, we need to get started. But taking more time, Sandra said, I'm so conflicted. I am too, because I'm excited about both topics. So Bryn, I hope we'll be able to tally up how many 1s and how many 2s. We'll give it another minute so that we can see what wins. But I'm excited about both topics because I think they're very relevant right now for your success. So we'll see. Bryn said we will send out the winner tonight in an email. Okay, let's give it another 2 minutes. Felix said number 1, please. 1 and 2. That's not fair, Risha. You can't pick both. It's looking pretty even. This is going to be a tight thing. And then I guess we should wait and see what the replay people say. To include them as well. So if you're on the replay, go ahead and answer as well so that we have a good number. I can't tell by just looking at it right now because it really is like half and half. Okay, well, thanks guys for being here. I need to save some energy for my VIPers Q&A. I'm looking forward to your questions. I will be jumping on right away on Zoom, and I will see the rest of you on Thursday for our final session. and you'll be invited to the masterclass. The masterclass does not have a replay. You have to show up to the masterclass live because that is like a deep dive, full on class that I would normally charge for. So I ask for your time in return for my time. And I get a million people who beg for the replay, and we do not do replays on Masterclass. You have to be there live because I'm going to invite you to become a member of my Hair Color Secrets Insiders at the end. And if you don't show up at Masterclass, then you don't find out how fabulous Hair Color Secrets Insiders is, and then you miss the opportunity to join. We only launch twice a year, both in May and November. And if you don't join now, you have to wait 6 months, and think about how much you could have accomplished in 6 months if you don't wait. So come to Masterclass. I will see you guys Thursday. Have a great night.